At 600 feet, the water outside is 20 times atmospheric pressure. The temperature is within a few degrees of freezing, and we're far beyond the reach of the sunshine. So you might think in such a hostile environment there would be very few animals living. But watch this. Another new undescribed comb jelly. Although specimens have been brought to the surface, it's only been seen alive through the windows of deep sea.
The date was January 23, 1960. While the rest of the world was looking upward, mesmerized by the burgeoning space race and the promise of the moon, two men were looking down into a darkness that had remained undisturbed for millions of years. Don Walsh, a lieutenant in the United States Navy, and Jacques Piccard, a Swiss oceanographer, were sealed inside the USS Trieste, a bathyscaphe designed by Jacques' father, Auguste Piccard. Their destination was the Challenger Deep, a crescent-shaped scar at the southern end of the Mariana Trench. It is a place where the water column above exerts a weight so immense that the concept of ocean ceases to be a liquid and begins to behave like a crushing, solid wall of force. The descent took nearly 5 hours. As they fell, they watched the colors of the ocean shift from a vibrant turquoise to a bruised indigo, then a charcoal gray, and finally, at around 3,000 feet, into the midnight zone, the bathypelagic realm. Here, the sun is a forgotten myth. The temperature drops to near freezing, and the pressure begins its exponential climb. For Walsh and Piccard, the world outside their 5-inch thick steel walls was becoming increasingly alien. The Trieste was essentially a heavy gasoline-filled float with a tiny, cramped pressure sphere suspended beneath it. Inside that sphere, the air grew cold and damp, and the only sound was the rhythmic hum of life support systems and the occasional, unsettling groan of metal reacting to the deepening cold. But the true terror began at 35,000 feet. They were less than 1,000 feet from the bottom when a sound like a thunderclap ripped through the silence of the cabin. It was a sharp, crystalline crack that vibrated through their very bones. One of the outer plexiglass window panes had shattered under the pressure. At that depth, the pressure is roughly 16,000 pounds per square inch. To give a visual to that number, it is the equivalent of having an entire fleet of jumbo jets stacked on top of a single person. A breach would have meant instantaneous death, not a slow drowning, but a molecular implosion. The water would have entered the cabin with the speed and force of a supersonic jet of liquid lead, vaporizing the occupants before their nervous systems could even register the pain. Yet they did not abort. They continued. When they finally touched down, kicking up a cloud of white, powdery silt that Piccard described as diatomaceous ooze, they looked out into the abyss through that fractured window. What they saw should not have existed. Modern biology of the time dictated that no complex life could survive the pressure of the Hadal Zone. The sheer weight of the water was thought to be too great for calcium to stay solid or for proteins to function. And yet there it was, a flatfish, roughly a foot long, swimming calmly through the silt. It wasn't a primitive scavenger or a sightless worm. It was a complex, symmetrical vertebrate that appeared to be thriving in a pressure that should have turned its blood to ice. Walsh and Piccard spent only 20 minutes at the bottom. During those 20 minutes, the logs describe a sense of being watched, not by a fish, but by something larger, something that stayed just outside the reach of their meager external lights. They reported seeing shimmering discs in the distance and shadows that moved with a speed and agility that defied the viscosity of the water at that depth. When they finally ascended, the world celebrated their bravery, but the Navy's interest in returning peaked and then suddenly, inexplicably vanished. The official reason was cost and the lack of strategic value, but the private debriefings suggested a different story. Walsh and Piccard hadn't just found a new depth, they had found a warning. The crack in the window wasn't just a mechanical failure, it was a message from an environment that was fundamentally hostile to the presence of light and heat. To understand why we stopped diving, we must first confront the physics of nightmares that governs the Challenger Deep. In this realm, the rules of the surface world are not just ignored, they are inverted. This is the workshop of evolution, a place where the isolation is so absolute that life has spent hundreds of millions of years diverging from the rest of the planet. While we evolved to use the sun, the inhabitants of the trench evolved to use the weight. Consider the concept of biological defiance. At the surface, our cell membranes are made of lipids that stay fluid to allow the transport of nutrients. If you take a human cell and place it in the Challenger Deep, those lipids would compress until they became solid, effectively turning the cell into a brick that can no longer breathe or eat. The life Walsh saw has solved this through piezolites, specialized chemical chaperones like TMAO, trimethylamine N-oxide. These molecules act like internal scaffolding, preventing the cell from collapsing. However, the energy required to maintain this scaffolding is immense. This leads us to a terrifying realization. Anything living at the bottom of the trench is an energetic miracle. They aren't just surviving. They are high-performance machines of meat and bone, designed to resist a force that can crush titanium. This brings us to the sensory trap. In the total darkness of the abyss, eyes are an evolutionary waste of energy. Instead, the predators of the Challenger deep have turned the water itself into a sensory organ. Sound travels 4 times faster in water than in air, but in the dense, high-pressure environment of the trench, it becomes a weapon. We believe the apex predators of this region don't just hear you, they feel the electrical biosignature of your nervous system. Every time your heart beats, it sends out a minute electrical pulse. To a creature in the trench, that pulse is a beacon. You are a glowing target of heat and electricity in a world that is otherwise cold and silent. In the Challenger deep, you don't hunt by sight. You wait for the vibration. You wait for the heartbeat of a surface dweller to stumble into your territory. There is a phenomenon known as marine snow, the constant drizzle of organic material falling from the upper layers of the ocean. For decades, it was seen as a passive food source. However, recent acoustic data from autonomous landers suggests something far more sinister. The marine snow isn't just falling, it's being manipulated. There are rhythmic, low-frequency vibrations detected near the seafloor that seem to create artificial eddies, funneling this organic matter into specific depressions. It is as if something is farming the snow, using it as bait to attract smaller scavengers, which in turn attract larger prey. We are seeing evidence of a coordinated, intelligent management of resources in a place where we thought life was a desperate struggle for scraps. If you were in the Trieste and heard that window crack, knowing that 8 tons of pressure per square inch were pushing against a failing pane of glass, would you have stayed for those 20 minutes to look into the dark, or would you have demanded an immediate ascent? Tell us your choice, stay or flee. The history of the 1960 dive is often sanitized, but the physics of nightmares suggests that Walsh and Piccard were lucky to escape. The water at that depth is so compressed that its density is nearly 5% higher than at the surface. It is thick, heavy, and carries sound with a terrifying clarity. When the window cracked, the sound would have been heard by every predator within a 50-mile radius. The Trieste was no longer a silent observer, it was a dinner bell. We have to ask ourselves, why did the United States government, at the height of the Cold War, a time when dominating every frontier was a matter of national survival, suddenly lose interest in the most extreme frontier on Earth? We spent billions to go to the moon, a dead rock 238,000 miles away, but we abandoned the abyss in our own backyard. The official narrative is that there was nothing there but silt and flatfish. But if you look at the classified records of the acoustic anomalies picked up by the Navy's SOSUS arrays during the 1960s and 70s, you find something different. They weren't just picking up Soviet submarines, they were picking up the bloop, the train, and other sounds that were too loud to be biological by any known standard, yet too organic to be mechanical. The physics of the deep dictate that an organism's size is limited by its ability to take in oxygen and nutrients. In the cold, high-pressure trench, metabolism slows down, leading to abyssal gigantism. We see it in isopods and squids. But what happens when that gigantism is applied to a vertebrate that has perfected the use of piezolites? You get a predator that is effectively invisible to sonar because its body density matches the surrounding water, yet possesses the skeletal strength of an industrial press. These are the liquid armor entities, creatures that don't fight the pressure, but incorporate it into their physiology. The marine snow theory also suggests a level of environmental engineering that implies a collective intelligence. If something is organizing the debris of the ocean to feed itself, it is no longer just an animal, it is an architect. This changes the entire context of Walsh and Piccard's experience. They weren't just looking at a fish, they were looking at a sentinel. The flatfish might have been the equivalent of a bird sitting on a rhinoceros's back, a small part of a much larger, much more dangerous whole. The reason we stopped diving isn't that we ran out of money. It's that we realized the Challenger deep isn't just a hole in the ground. It's a sovereign territory. Every time we send a probe down with high-powered halogen lights, we are committing an act of aggression. In a world of shadows and electrical sensing, a 100,000 lumen light is a flashbang. It's an announcement. And as the Trieste learned in 1960, when you announce yourself to the abyss responds. The crack in the window was the first warning. The silence that followed for the next 50 years was our attempt to make sure they didn't hear us a second time. As we dive deeper into the data, we find that the physics of nightmares isn't just about the pressure on the sub, it's about the pressure on the human mind. The isolation, the realization that you are in a place where no help can ever reach you, and the knowledge that the very water around you is vibrating with the heartbeats of things that have been hunting since before the dinosaurs. The transition from the bathypelagic zone to the Hadal pelagic zone, specifically the depths exceeding 30,000 feet, is not merely a change in depth. It is a change in the fundamental laws of biology. At the surface, life is governed by the availability of sunlight and the stability of carbon-based structures. In the Challenger deep, life is governed by the crush. To survive at 16,000 pounds per square inch, an organism cannot simply be tough. It must be a manifestation of the pressure itself. We have long hypothesized about the existence of liquid armor organisms, taxonomically unidentified entities that have moved beyond the need for calcium-based skeletal systems. In the crushing dark, calcium becomes soluble, bones literally dissolve. Therefore, the apex predators of the trench have evolved a state of matter that physicists are only beginning to understand in a laboratory setting. These creatures utilize a high-density, non-Newtonian biological fluid within their integumentary systems. This fluid, a complex chain of pressurized lipids and heavy metal proteins, behaves like a liquid when the creature is at rest, allowing for extreme flexibility and camouflage. However, the moment a kinetic force is applied, such as the impact of a submersible's robotic arm or the thruster wash of an ROV, the fluid instantly hardens into a substance with the structural integrity of a diamond lattice. This liquid armor is not just defensive, it is the most terrifying weapon in the known natural world. We believe these organisms use localized pressure differentials to hunt. By rapidly contracting specialized muscle groups, they can create a cavitation bubble in the water around them. In the Hadal Zone, where the water is already compressed by the weight of the entire ocean, a cavitation bubble collapse releases enough energy to melt steel. We are talking about biological entities that can implode a titanium hull by simply brushing against it. They don't need teeth, they have physics. They don't need claws, they have the 1,100 atmospheres of the Earth's crust. When we find unexplained structural failures in deep-sea equipment, spheres that have been flattened like soda cans despite being rated for the depth, we aren't looking at engineering mistakes. We are looking at the aftermath of a predatory strike. The translucent leviathans. But the most terrifying predator isn't the one you see, it's the one the sonar can't find. This is the micro-hook that haunts every deep-sea navigator. We call them translucent leviathans. Our current sonar technology relies on the acoustic impedance between water and a solid object. If an object is dense and hard, like a submarine or a whale's bone, the sound waves bounce back, creating a clear return. The translucent leviathans, however, have evolved a body composition that is an exact match for the density and acoustic velocity of the surrounding Hadal water. They are effectively invisible to active and passive sonar. These beings are made of a gelatinous substance so dense and so chemically complex that they are essentially liquid ghosts. They move through the trench not by swimming in the traditional sense, but by gliding through the pressure gradients. Imagine a creature 70 feet long, weighing several tons, drifting mere inches from a submersible's lights, and the sensors show nothing but empty water. They are the ultimate stealth hunters. We have recorded instances where ROVs suddenly spin out of control, or their tether cables are severed with a clean, surgical precision that defies explanation. The data shows no contact, no object, and no animal. There is only the sudden, violent realization that something massive was there, and then it was gone. The heartbeat of the abyss. This brings us to the most chilling acoustic record in the history of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. There is a specific frequency recorded periodically in the Challenger deep that matches no known animal, no geological shift, and no man-made vessel. It is a rhythmic low-end pulse centered around 0.8 hertz. It is too slow to be a motor and too deep to be a tectonic plate grinding. When we apply advanced bioacoustic modeling to this sound, the conclusion is unavoidable. It is a heartbeat. But the scale is wrong. For a heart to produce a sound wave with that much displacement in water compressed to the density of the trench, the organ itself would have to be approximately 30 to 40 feet in diameter. This implies an organism of such gargantuan proportions that it would dwarf the blue whale. We are talking about a city block-sized apex. This creature doesn't hunt by chasing. It is a stationary filter feeder that has become a permanent part of the trench's geography. It sits in the deepest silt, mimicking a rock formation or a trench wall, and simply breathes. The pulse is the sound of millions of gallons of water being pumped through a biological system designed to extract every microscopic nutrient from the marine snow. This is the heartbeat of a god, and it is a heartbeat that speeds up every time we send a vessel down. We have compared the logs. The frequency of the trench pulse increases by 15% the moment a human-occupied submersible enters the water. It isn't just a sound, it's an awareness. The trench is listening. In 2012, James Cameron, a man with more resources and passion for the deep than almost anyone in history, descended into the Challenger Deep in his custom-built Deepsea Challenger. He spent 7 years developing the technology. He was supposed to stay down for 6 hours to conduct extensive biological sampling. Instead, he surfaced early. He came back describing the bottom as a desolate desert, a wasteland where nothing moved. But the Cameron classified files, a series of leaked telemetry logs and sensor readouts that have circulated in the dark corners of the oceanographic community for years, tell a different story. The logs indicate that at 35,000 feet, Cameron's sub experienced a series of anomalous magnetic spikes. These spikes were so powerful they scrambled the digital recording arrays. Why did the cameras cut out during the most critical part of the descent? The official report says a hydraulic leak. The leaked logs suggest a high-energy interference pattern emanating from the seafloor. Furthermore, the sonar logs from the Deepsea Challenger show a continuous tracking event that lasted for 40 minutes. Something was following him. Something large. Something that maintained a constant distance of exactly 150 feet, just outside the range of his powerful LED lights. Why did Cameron, a man obsessed with the ocean, suddenly pivot his entire career away from deep-sea exploration? Why did he never go back? Why did he donate his multi-million-dollar sub to a museum where it could no longer be used? The strategic bridge. We are currently analyzing these leaked logs in conjunction with satellite bathymetry from the same day. The data suggests that Cameron didn't find a desert, he found a graveyard. There are patterns on the seafloor that suggest the structural remains of massive, biological megastructures, the bones of the translucent leviathans, or perhaps something even older. We are preparing a massive investigation into the Cameron classified files, coming in our next video. We believe he saw something that changed him. He didn't see a wasteland, he saw a warning. The humility of the abyss is something we have forgotten in our age of satellite mapping and GPS. We think we know the Earth, but we only know the surface. The signals we see in modern ROV footage, the flickering lights that appear in the background of NOAA live streams, the orbs that dart through the frame at 36,000 feet, aren't camera glitches. They are sophisticated bioluminescent language. We are watching a conversation we aren't invited to. The reason we stopped diving isn't because of the cost of the titanium or the risk to the pilots. It's because we realize that the Challenger Deep is not a place we can visit. It is a closed ecosystem that has existed undisturbed for 4 billion years. Every time we turn on a light down there, we aren't exploring. We are announcing our location. In a world of total darkness, light is the ultimate signal of an intruder. We have been ringing the dinner bell in a house full of monsters. The abyss isn't empty. It's just waiting for the next light to fall. This is the mantra of the few remaining deep-sea engineers who refuse to go back. They know that every descent is a gamble. The things that live in the trench have been hunting in the dark since before the first dinosaur walked the earth. They have seen us coming. They have tasted our metal. They have analyzed our sound. The next time we go down, we won't be the ones doing the observing. We will be the specimen. We will be the intruder caught in the high-pressure jaws of a world that has finally run out of patience. The Challenger Deep is not a mystery to be solved. It is a boundary to be respected. And those who cross that boundary might find that the desolate desert is actually a very crowded, very hungry room. This brings us to the most chilling acoustic record in the history of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. There is a specific frequency recorded periodically in the Challenger Deep that matches no known animal, no geological shift, and no man-made vessel. It is a rhythmic low-end pulse centered around 0.8 Hz. is too slow to be a motor and too deep to be a tectonic plate grinding. When we apply advanced bioacoustic modeling to this sound, the conclusion is unavoidable. It is a heartbeat. But the scale is wrong. For a heart to produce a sound wave with that much displacement in water compressed to the density of the trench, the organ itself would have to be approximately 30 to 40 feet in diameter. This implies an organism of such gargantuan proportions that would dwarf the blue whale. We are talking about a city block-sized apex. This creature doesn't hunt by chasing. It is a stationary filter feeder that has become a permanent part of the trench's geography. It sits in the deepest silt, mimicking a rock formation or a trench wall, and simply breathes. The pulse is the sound of millions of gallons of water being pumped through a biological system designed to extract every microscopic nutrient from the marine snow. Analysis of the rattle, a similar sound originating from the Challenger deep that lasted for 3 weeks in 1984, suggests it was the sound of a massive, silicate-based shell being pulled through the mud. The speed of the movement was calculated at 40 knots. Nothing that size should be able to move that fast at that depth. During the Cold War, the U.S. Navy's sound surveillance system, SOSUS, picked up the bloop, but they also picked up the rattle. It was the sound of something metal being dragged across the seafloor. Not a small object, something that displaced enough water to be heard in Hawaii. The silent Navy and classified encounters. The humility of the abyss is something we have forgotten. We think we know the Earth, but we only know the surface. The signals we see in modern ROV footage, the flickering lights that appear in the background of NOAA live streams, the orbs that dart through the frame at 36,000 feet, aren't camera glitches. They are sophisticated bioluminescent language. We are watching a conversation we aren't invited to. The reason we stopped diving isn't because of the cost of the titanium or the risk to the pilots. It's because we realize that the Challenger Deep is not a place we can visit. It is a closed ecosystem that has existed undisturbed for 4 billion years. Every time we turn on a light down there, we aren't exploring. We are announcing our location. In a world of total darkness, light is the ultimate signal of an intruder. We have been ringing the dinner bell in a house full of monsters. The abyss isn't empty. It's just waiting for the next light to fall. This is the mantra of the few remaining deep sea engineers who refuse to go back. They know that every descent is a gamble. The things that live in the trench have been hunting in the dark since before the first dinosaur walked the earth. They have seen us coming. They have tasted our metal. They have analyzed our sound. The next time we go down, we won't be the ones doing the observing. We will be the specimen. We will be the intruder caught in the high-pressure jaws of a world that has finally run out of patience.